When my daughter laughed at my husband's will at his funeral, I felt my world crumble beneath my feet. Days later, I was sitting across from her lawyer as she tried to contest everything Harold had left behind. That's when I realized grief doesn't just wear black. Sometimes it wears the smiling face of someone you thought loved you. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because trust me, this story twists more than a hurricane on the Gulf Coast. I still remember the weight of Harold's casket as the pallbearers lowered it into the ground. 43 years of marriage, reduced to a mahogany box and a pile of dirt. The November wind cut through my black dress, but I barely felt it. Numbness had become my closest companion since the heart attack took him 3 days earlier. "Mom, it's time to go," Clara said, her hand on my elbow. My daughter, our only child, looked composed in her tailored black suit. Too composed, perhaps. I nodded, allowing her to guide me to the waiting car. Friends and distant relatives offered condolences as we passed. Empty words for an empty heart. "Mr. Dixon said we should come to the reading tomorrow morning," Clara mentioned as we drove away from the cemetery. "To get it over with." I didn't respond. Harold had handled all our finances. Insurance policies, investments, our retirement fund. It was all a mystery to me. I'd spent my life raising Clara, volunteering at the church, and supporting Harold's career. Money matters were his domain. The next morning dawned gray and cold. Clara picked me up early, insisting we stop for coffee before meeting with Dixon, Harold's attorney for over 20 years. She seemed anxious, checking her watch repeatedly. "Are you in a hurry?" I asked. "Just want to make sure we're not late," she replied, drumming her perfectly manicured nails against the steering wheel. "And I have a lunch meeting I can't miss." A lunch meeting. The day after her father's funeral. I swallowed my disappointment and stared out the window. Dixon's office was exactly as I remembered it. Leather-bound books lining walnut shelves, certificates framed on the walls, the smell of furniture polish and old paper. Clara immediately took the seat closest to Dixon's desk. I sat beside her, clutching my purse like a lifeline. "Mrs. Reynolds, Miss Reynolds," Dixon nodded solemnly as he entered. "My deepest condolences. .. Script part separator .. "Thank you, Mr. Dixon," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. He settled into his chair and placed a thick folder on his desk. "Before we begin, I want to assure you that Harold was very thorough in his final arrangements. He wanted to make sure you were both taken care of." Clara straightened in her chair. "Of course he did." Something in her tone made me glance at her. There was an eagerness in her eyes I hadn't noticed before, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Dixon adjusted his glasses and opened the folder. "Let's proceed with the reading of Harold Reynolds' last will and testament." The legal jargon washed over me in waves. I caught phrases like sound mind and hereby bequeath, but my thoughts kept drifting to Harold. The way he'd squeeze my hand 3 times, our secret code for I love you. His laughter when we danced in the kitchen. The proud tears in his eyes when Clara graduated from college. "To my beloved wife, Margaret Reynolds, I leave our family home at 1542 Maple Street, free of any mortgage, and a monthly stipend of $3,000 from my pension to cover her basic needs." I nodded absently. Our home. At least I wouldn't have to move. The remainder of my estate, including my investment portfolio valued at approximately $4. $2 million, my stake in Reynolds Engineering, and all other assets. Clara leaned forward slightly. "I hereby donate to the Children's Hope Foundation to establish a scholarship fund for underprivileged youth seeking careers in engineering." The silence that followed felt like a physical presence in the room. Then, it happened. Clara laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh or a sob disguised as laughter. It was cold, incredulous, almost mocking. "This is a joke, right?" She looked between Dixon and me, her smile fading when she saw our expressions. "Dad wouldn't do this." Dixon cleared his throat. "There is a provision for you, Miss Reynolds. Your father has left you his collection of rare books and a one-time payment of $50,000. $50,000. Clara's voice rose sharply. "When he was worth millions. This can't be legal." "He promised." She stopped abruptly. "Promised what, Clara?" I asked, suddenly very alert. Script part separator equals. Nothing, Mom. She turned to Dixon. I want to contest this will. Dad wasn't in his right mind. He was sick for months before he died. Dixon removed his glasses. Your father had this will drawn up 2 years ago, Miss Reynolds. He was of sound mind and body. I can assure you of that. 2 years. I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. Harold had never mentioned changing his will. What had happened 2 years ago? Clara stood up, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I'll get another lawyer then. This is ridiculous. I'm his daughter. His only child. Clara, please sit down, I said, reaching for her hand. She yanked it away. Don't touch me. She glared at me with such venom that I physically recoiled. You knew about this, didn't you? You convinced him to cut me out. The accusation hit me like a slap. No, I had no idea. Harold never told me. Liar. Clara's face contorted with rage. You've always been jealous of my relationship with Dad. He loved me more, and you couldn't stand it. Dixon stood up. Miss Reynolds, I must ask you to calm down. Calm down. She laughed again, that same cold sound that seemed to freeze the air in the room. My father just died, and now I find out my mother manipulated him into giving everything to charity instead of his own daughter. Why should I calm down? That's not true, I protested, my voice breaking. I didn't know anything about this. I'm as surprised as you are. Clara grabbed her purse. I'll see you in court, Mother. She spat the last word like it was poison on her tongue. As for you, Dixon, expect a call from my attorney. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The framed diplomas on Dixon's wall rattled. I sat there, stunned into silence. The daughter I had raised, the child I had loved more than my own life, had just accused me of stealing her inheritance, an inheritance I hadn't even known existed. Mrs. Reynolds, Dixon's voice seemed to come from far away. Are you all right? Script part separator equals. I turned to Dixon, my hands shaking. Why would Harold do this? Why wouldn't he tell me? Dixon sighed, returning to his seat. Your husband came to me after Clara's divorce from Stephen 2 years ago. He was concerned. About what? He discovered Clara had been living well beyond her means. Maxed out credit cards, luxury purchases, a condo she couldn't afford. Dixon hesitated. He also found evidence that she'd been pressuring Stephen for money he didn't have. Harold believed it contributed to their marriage failing. My mind raced back to that time. Clara had seemed devastated by the divorce, but recovered suspiciously quickly. She'd moved into an expensive downtown apartment, bought a new car, started taking exotic vacations, all while complaining about her stingy settlement. There's more, Dixon said quietly. Harold hired a private investigator. My stomach dropped. A what? Clara approached him for a substantial loan last year, $250,000. She claimed it was for a business venture, but when Harold asked for details, she became evasive. So he had her investigated. The thought made me ill. The PI discovered she'd accumulated gambling debts at several casinos. Harold was heartbroken. Dixon pulled another folder from his desk. He confronted her privately. She denied everything, even when presented with evidence. A week later, she began suggesting Harold update his will. I felt like I was hearing about strangers, not my husband and daughter. He decided the money would do more good helping children who truly needed it. Dixon handed me an envelope. Harold left this for you. He asked me to give it to you after the reading. On wobbly legs, I stood to leave. Outside the office building, rain had started falling, fat, cold drops matching the tears on my face. My phone buzzed with a text from Clara. Hope you're happy with what you've done. This isn't over. I clutched Harold's letter, wondering what secrets it held. The life I thought I knew had shattered, and I was standing in the wreckage, completely alone. Script part separator equals. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, rain drumming on the roof, before I could bring myself to open Harold's letter. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. My dearest Margaret, it began in Harold's familiar handwriting. If you're reading this, I've left you alone, and I'm so sorry for that. I'm even more sorry for keeping secrets from you. The letter confirmed everything Dixon had said about Clara, the gambling, the debts, the demands for money. But there was more. Clara has been working with her boyfriend, a man named Marcus Donovan, to pressure me into changing my will. He has connections to people who've threatened me. I've kept this from you to protect you, but now you must protect yourself. Don't trust Clara while she's with this man. There's a safe deposit box at First National, key enclosed. Everything you need is there. I stared at the small key that had fallen into my lap. Harold had feared our own daughter, and I had been blind to all of it. When I finally drove home, Clara's car was in my driveway. She wasn't alone. A tall man with slicked back hair leaned against the porch railing. Marcus, I presumed. Mom, Clara called as I approached. Her tone was dramatically different from earlier, sweet, concerned. I've been worried sick. We need to talk. We do, I agreed, unlocking the door. But not with him. Marcus stepped forward, hand extended. Mrs. Reynolds, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm Marcus Donovan, Clara's fiancé. Fiancé. Another secret. I ignored his hand. Clara, if you want to talk, he waits outside. That's ridiculous, she protested. Marcus is family now. No, I said firmly. He isn't. Marcus smiled thinly. It's fine, babe. I'll wait in the car. He kissed Clara's cheek, whispering something that made her nod. Inside, Clara's tactics shifted immediately. Mom, you have to help me fight this will. Dad was confused. Stop, Lynn, interrupted. I know about the gambling. I know about the threats. Her face hardened. Dad told you. He left me a letter. And evidence. What evidence? She demanded. Enough to understand why he changed his will. Clara's facá de craque. You don't understand what it's like. I made some mistakes, got in with the wrong people. Marcus is helping me. Is Marcus one of those wrong people? Her silence was answer enough. Clara, I'll help you get counseling, but I won't help you contest the will. Then you're as dead to me as Dad is, she hissed, storming out. Through the window, I watched her gesturing angrily to Marcus. He glanced at the house, eyes finding mine with chilling calculation. I knew then that my battle was just beginning. Script part separator ===. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the old house made me jump. I checked the locks twice, then wedged a chair under the doorknob like I'd seen in movies. I wrote warnings about Marcus Eschued in my mind. Et down, I drove to First National Bank. The manager recognized me. Harold had brought me to holiday parties here for years. Mrs. Reynolds, my condolences, he said, leading me to the vault. Take all the time you need. The safe deposit box contained a USB drive, financial documents, and a leather journal. I took everything to a coffee shop several blocks away, plugged the drive into my laptop, and began reading. Harold had documented everything meticulously. Screenshots of threatening texts from unknown numbers. Photos of Marcus meeting with men outside casinos. Bank statements showing Clara's spiraling debts, over $400,000 at last count. Most disturbing was a recorded conversation between Clara and Marcus, time-stamped just 3 months ago. Your dad's worth millions, Marcus's voice said. Once we're married, we push for a new will, then wait. Old man's heart stego na leste forever. Don't talk like that, Clara replied, but without conviction. Baby, think about it. No more debt collectors, no more scraping by. We could have everything. My hands should so badly spilled my coffee. They had been waiting for Harold to die. Planning for it. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Heard you visited the bank this morning. Smart move getting Dad's money before the lawyers freeze everything. I want my share. Meet me at 2 p.m. Come alone. It wasn't signed, but it could only be Clara. How did she know I'd gone to the bank? Was someone watching me? I glanced around the coffee shop, suddenly paranoid. A man by the window quickly looked down at his newspaper. Was he following me? I gathered my things and hurried out, heart pounding. I needed help, but who could I trust? Script part separator equals. Dixon's office seemed like the only safe harbor in a storm that was growing more dangerous by the hour. I called from my car, speaking in hushed tones. Mrs. Reynolds, I strongly advise against meeting Clara alone, Dixon warned after I explained the text. If Marcus Donovan is involved, you could be in real danger. What do you know about him? Dixon paused. Harold hired a background check. Donovan has been arrested twice for fraud, though charges were dropped. He's known to associate with loan sharks. My blood ran cold. What should you do? Como tomar off sinal? Bring everything from the safe deposit box. As I pulled away from the curb, I noticed a black sedan 3 cars behind. It followed my turns too precisely to be coincidence. Igual de Dixon Beck. I think I'm being followed. Drive to the police station instead, he instructed. The sedan disappeared when I turned toward the station. At the precinct, I met Officer Reyes, a sympathetic woman who took my statement seriously. Financial elder abuse cases are increasing, she explained. And threats like these constitute harassment. I showed her Harold's evidence. Her expression grew grave. This Marcus Donovan is on our radar. He's graduated from fraud to extortion. Mrs. Reynolds, would you be willing to help us build a case? What would that involve? Meet Clara, but with police monitoring. Guay. Get her to admit what they're planning. The thought terrified me, but I thought of Harold, how he protected me until his last breath. I'll do it, I said. We formulated a plan. I would meet Clara at a restaurant near the police station. Officers would be positioned nearby. I'd wear a recording device. As Officer Reyes fitted the wire under my blouse, my phone buzzed with another text, change of plans. Meet at home. 30 minutes. Reyes frowned. She's trying to control the situation. More isolated. My neighbors are all home during the day, I reasoned. It might be safer than I thought. We'll park unmarked cars on both ends of your street, Reyes promised. Say the word ambulance if you feel threatened, and we'll move in. Script part separator The drive home felt surreal. Was I really about to confront my own daughter while wearing a police wire? When had my life turned into a crime drama? Clara's car was in the driveway, alone, thank God. No sign of Marcus. She answered the door before I could use my key. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail instead of her usual perfect style. Mom, she said, voice raspy. I wasn't sure you'd come. I stepped inside, hyper-aware of the wire against my skin. You didn't give me much choice. The house felt different somehow, as if Harold's death had changed the very air within its walls. Family photos lined the hallway, happy moments frozen in time. Had they all been lies? Clara led me to the kitchen. Two coffee mugs sat waiting. I made your favorite, she said. Azelnut. I didn't touch it. What do you want, Clara? She sank into a chair. I want what's rightfully mine. Dad promised me. When did he promise you millions? He always said he'd take care of me, that everything he built was for his family. She leaned forward. Mom, I'm in trouble. The gambling debts? Her eyes widened slightly. What else did Dad tell you? Everything, elite. About Marcus, the threats, all of it. Clara's face hardened. Marcus is trying to help me. Those people I owe money to, they're dangerous. So your solution is to take what little I have left? You have this house. You get monthly payments. She slammed her hand on the table. I have nothing but debts and people threatening to break my legs. And whose fault is that? I demanded. Script part separator Clara looked away, her anger deflating slightly. I made mistakes. I know that. But I can fix everything with my inheritance. Marcus has a plan. I'm sure he does, I interrupted. Is his plan why you're tracking my movements? How did you know I went to the bank this morning? She had the decency to look embarrassed. One of Marcus's friends works security there. So you're having me followed? Your own mother? It's not like that, she protested. We just need to know what Dad left behind. The real stuff, not what Dixon disclosed. I reached into my purse and pulled out Harold's journal. Is this what you're looking for? Clara's eyes fixed on it hungrily. What is that? Your father's private journal. He documented everything, Clara. Every conversation, every threat, every debt. Her face paled. Give me that. No. I held it protectively against my chest. What would you do with it anyway? Destroy evidence. Evidence of what? She scoffed, but her voice trembled slightly. Of how you and Marcus were waiting for your father to die. Planning for it. That's not. We never. I heard the recording, Clara. I know you were counting the days until his heart gave out. Tears sprang to her eyes. It wasn't like that. Marcus said those things, not me. I loved Dad. Yet you're threatening me now. Having me followed. Demanding money. Because I'm desperate. She shouted, standing up. Those people will kill me if I don't pay. Then let me help you the right way. Not with money, but by getting you away from Marcus and into a program. Clara laughed bitterly. A program? Mom, I owe over $500,000. No program can fix that. $500,000. It had gotten worse since Harold's documentation. What happened to the $50,000 from the will? Marcus already took it for a down payment. She made air quotes around the words. It bought me 2 weeks. Script part separator ===. I've got an idea, I said carefully, watching Clara's desperate eyes. There might be a way to access some of your father's investments early. Her posture changed instantly. What do you mean? Dixon mentioned something about an emergency clause. For family hardships. This was a complete fabrication, but I needed to see how far she'd go. Clara's eyes lit up. How much could I get? Maybe enough to clear your debts. But Marcus can't be involved. She hesitated, conflict clear on her face. He won't like being cut out. Do you want his approval or your freedom? I pressed. For a moment, I glimpsed the daughter I remembered, vulnerable, uncertain. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression hardened. He's outside, she whispered. I felt my heart rate spike. Who? Marcus. She looked panicked. He said he'd wait, but he doesn't trust you. Tell him to leave, I said firmly. You don't understand. He won't. The back door opened without warning. Marcus strolled in as if he owned the place, his smile not reaching his cold eyes. Mrs. Reynolds, he drawled. Having a nice mother-daughter chat? We were just finishing, I said, standing my ground. I'd like you to leave my house. Now. We're practically family. He moved closer, and I instinctively stepped back. Clara mentioned you found some interesting reading material at the bank. My hand tightened around Harold's journal. That's none of your business. Everything about Clara is my business. He reached for my purse. Why don't I hold on to that while you ladies talk? I jerked away. Get out, or I'm calling an ambulance. Clara looked confused by my choice of words, but Marcus's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Script part separator ===. The front door burst open with a crash. Officer Reyes and 2 uniformed officers rushed in, weapons drawn. Police. Hands where we can see them. Reyes shouted. Marcus froze, then lunged toward me. I clutched Harold's journal to my chest and stumbled backward. Clara screamed as one officer tackled Marcus to the ground. Marcus Donovan, you're under arrest for extortion and harassment, Reyes announced, handcuffing him. This is ridiculous. He snarled, struggling against the restraints. Tell them, Clara. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. Clara stood paralyzed, looking from Marcus to me and back again. You set me up, she whispered, her face ashen. You were wearing a wire. I had to protect myself, I said. And you? The officers led Marcus out to a waiting patrol car. Neighbors had gathered on their lawns to watch the spectacle. My private grief had become a public drama. Clara Reynolds. Reyes approached her with handcuffs. What? No. Clara backed away. Mom, tell them.
He felt my heart breaking all over again.
Clara, they found evidence of conspiracy on Marcus's phone. Text messages discussing how to pressure your father into changing his will. Discussing his death. It wasn't like that, she insisted, tears streaming down her face. I never wanted Dad to die. You have the right to remain silent, Reyes began as she secured the cuffs around Clara's wrists. I watched them lead my daughter away, remembering the little girl who'd once climbed into my lap for bedtime stories. How had we ended up here? Dixon arrived shortly after, having been alerted by the police. Are you all right? He asked, finding me sitting shell-shocked at my kitchen table. They arrested my daughter, I said numbly. Script part separator, Dixon sat beside me, his presence oddly comforting in this nightmare. The police called me, he explained. They found significant evidence on Marcus's devices. It's worse than we thought. Worse how? My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. They were planning to contest the will, then pressure you to release funds. If you refused, he hesitated. There were discussions about having you declared mentally incompetent. Or worse. I felt physically ill. My own daughter. Clara may have been manipulated. Marcus has a history of targeting vulnerable women.
The thought gave me little comfort. I the raise de Clara to be strong, independent.
How had she fallen under this man's influence? 3 days passed in a blur of police interviews and sleepless nights. The story made local news. Widow targeted by daughter and boyfriend in inheritance scheme. I stopped answering my phone, unable to face friends' pity or reporters' questions. On the 4th day, Dixon called with surprising news. Clara wants to see you. She's offering to testify against Marcus in exchange for leniency. What does that mean for her? Probation instead of jail time, likely. And mandatory gambling addiction treatment. At the county jail, Clara looked small in her orange jumpsuit, nothing like the confident woman who'd laughed at her father's funeral. Mom, she whispered when I sat across from her. I'm so sorry. I wanted to believe her, but trust felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. The police found everything on Marcus's phone, she continued, not meeting my eyes. He recorded our conversations.
Planning, terrible things.
Were you going to go through with it? I needed to know. I don't know, she admitted, her voice breaking. I was so deep in debt. So scared. He made it sound like the only way out. Script part separator, I sat with that answer, letting its painful honesty sink in. Whatever happened next, I needed the full truth. How much of it was the gambling? I asked. Clara wiped tears with her sleeve. It started after my divorce. I felt so empty. The casinos filled something in me. The rush when I won. She shook her head. But I lost way more than I won. Marcus found me at my lowest point. And he offered to solve everything if you helped him get your father's money. She nodded miserably. I never thought Dad would actually die so soon. I just thought we could convince him to help me. Then Marcus started talking about other options. Why didn't you come to us? Your father and I would have helped you. I was ashamed. And afraid Dad would be disappointed. Her voice cracked. Now he died thinking I only cared about his money. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following week. Clara's public defender seemed competent but overworked. Marcus had somehow secured an expensive attorney who swaggered into court like he owned it. I sat in the back row, a scarf covering my hair, sunglasses hiding my red-rimmed eyes. The prosecutor presented evidence including text messages, recorded conversations, and financial records showing how Marcus had systematically taken control of Clara's finances while plotting to access Harold's estate. Most damning was a recording of Marcus discussing having me removed from the equation if I became problematic after Harold's death. Clara sobbed openly when this was played. Even Marcus's smooth facade cracked, his eyes darting nervously around the courtroom. When Clara took the stand and fully confessed her role while detailing Marcus's manipulation, I felt a complex mix of heartbreak and relief. My daughter had done terrible things, but perhaps there was still hope for redemption. Marcus's lawyer tried to paint Clara as the mastermind who had manipulated an innocent Marcus into her schemes. His performance might have been convincing if not for the mountain of evidence suggesting otherwise. When the judge announced her decision, the courtroom fell silent. Marcus was denied bail, deemed a flight risk with his history of fraud and the severity of the charges. Clara, to my surprise, was granted conditional release into my custody pending trial, with an ankle monitor and strict instructions to begin gambling addiction treatment immediately. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. I pulled Clara close and pushed through without comment, shielding her face from cameras. The drive home was silent until Clara finally spoke. "Why are you helping me? After everything I've done?" "Because you're my daughter," I said simply. "And because your father would want me to." "Dad knew, didn't he? About the gambling, long before he hired the investigator." I nodded. "He was trying to protect you, in his own way, by cutting me off." She sounded bitter, but less than before. "By not enabling you." Harold believed in consequences. But he also believed in second chances. The months that followed weren't easy. Clara attended therapy 3 times a week and Gamblers Anonymous meetings every night. I went with her sometimes, sitting quietly in the back as she shared her story. Watching her take responsibility was like seeing her grow up all over again. Marcus's trial began in spring. Clara testified against him, her voice steady as she detailed his manipulation and threats. When his 50-year sentence was announced, I felt nothing but relief. Clara received 5 years probation and community service, working with a nonprofit that educated young people about gambling addiction. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. She was now helping others with the very scholarship fund her father had established. A year after Harold's funeral, we stood together at his grave, placing fresh flowers against the headstone. "I've been thinking about what Dad would say if he were here," Clara said softly. "What is that?" She smiled sadly. "Probably, I told you so about Marcus. But also that he was proud of me for finding my way back." I squeezed her hand. "He would be proud. I am too." As we walked back to the car, I realized something important. Harold's will hadn't been about punishment. It had been his final act of love, forcing Clara to find herself again without the crutch of money, and giving me the strength to stand on my own. Some lessons cost everything to learn. But in the end, what we'd lost in wealth, we'd gained in wisdom. And that, perhaps, was the inheritance that mattered most.